All right, great. Well, welcome to Strategies for 2025, Building a Future-Ready Workforce Through Apprenticeship. TPMA is pleased to kick off National Apprenticeship Week with this webinar. I'm Vicki Thompson, Senior Advisor for Education and Workforce Strategy. Before we get started with our panelists, I would like to take a moment to explain TPMA's history with registered apprenticeship programs. TPMA has been fortunate enough to be involved in several projects with registered apprenticeship programs. We've convened partners, created RAP ecosystems, provided related technical instruction curriculum, and assisted in registering over 300 apprentices and 200 pre-apprentices. Because of that commitment to registered apprenticeship programming, the U.S. Department of Labor selected TPMA as an apprenticeship ambassador for its very first cohort announced in 2022. Our role as an ambassador is to create and give voice to the best practices of registered apprenticeship programs, convene partners, and continue to advocate for RAP use. This year, we became involved with the Apprenticeship Trailblazer program, which encourages apprentices to share their stories to inspire others to participate in RAPs. As an apprenticeship ambassador, I personally am pleased to mentor 2 apprentices who are participants in the Trailblazer program, one of whom joins us today. The other is at the Department of Labor's conference in DC celebrating National Apprenticeship Week. So without further ado, I'm excited to have today representatives from Lorain County Community College representing Ohio TechNet, Spirit Aerosystems, and the Hartford. Each panelist will do a self-introduction by giving us their name, organization, and title, and then I'll ask some questions. After my final question, we'll open the chat for questions from all of you watching today. So let's begin, and let's start with Lorain Community College. Sylvia?
Thanks so much for having me. So I'm Sylvia Rios, and as Vicki mentioned, I am representing both Lorain County Community College and Ohio TechNet, which is a consortium of all 22 community colleges, as well as several universities and tech centers throughout the state of Ohio, working together to close workforce gaps. So I am also a grant project lead, focusing primarily on finding new opportunities in workforce to reach new audiences.
Thanks, Sylvia. Elisa, will you introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi. So my name is Elisa. I'm a graduate of the apprenticeship at the Hartford, and I'm a technical rater.
Thanks. Cindy?
Yeah, hey, good afternoon. My name is Cindy Angelini, and I actually work on early career development at the Hartford. I'm a development manager there. We've been participating with apprenticeships for about 7 years now. So happy to be here.
Thank you. And I'm going to ask for some technical assistance here and ask Steve, were we able to get Lori on from Spirit Aero? Sorry. I'm not hearing anything, so I'm going to go ahead and move on. So what we're going to do is I'm going to ask you questions. We'll go round robin. So Cindy, I'm going to start with you. I would like to know, how did the Hartford decide to start a registered apprenticeship program? In what specific positions and why?
Sure. So the program kind of started initiating in 2016, and it was really initially to look at how we could attract pools of talent that were diverse pools that were not inside your traditional four-year colleges. So back in that time frame, really you were looking, our hiring strategy was really looking at four-year colleges, and it was like, insurance, everybody still, it's not like you're getting a degree in insurance. So we really still had to train them, somebody with their biology degree, English degree, like, what am I going to do? Let's go with insurance. And it was like, why don't we scale this down, go into a community college and then start some of the training. So get some of the training early on. So we started to partner with some of our community colleges and being able to look at talent, being able to look at a different talent pipeline that provided us with that diverse population that we were looking for, and we developed it. So it really, again, was taken out of the need to try to attract talent outside of a normal four-year college.
Thank you. So Elisa, why did you choose to take part in the Hartford's RAP program?
So honestly, a lot of it came like through like having the flexibility of being able to go to school and work at the same time, and then being accommodating to your school schedule. Also, for me, I've never heard of an apprenticeship, and I thought, this is a really great, like, even if I found out insurance wasn't for me, I would still have that skill of like insurance knowledge for like the rest of my life. And I'm able to like help my family and friends with their insurance questions. And I ended up really liking it. And I really ended up liking working at the Hartford. So
Oh, that's great. Okay, we're going to ask you some more about that, but we're going to move on to Sylvia for a moment. So Sylvia, you recently completed a USDOL scaling apprenticeship program. Can you tell us a bit about the goals of the project and what the final outcomes were?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Scaling Apprenticeship Grant was actually a collaborative partnership with Ohio Manufacturers Association and Ohio TechNet. And our project name was Ohio Manufacturers Workforce Partnership. And together, we were engaging employers in new earn and learn programming as well as registered apprenticeship. And we had a goal of 5,000 participants, and we exceeded that goal. And we also engaged individuals, participants, primarily registered apprentices, in it was actually around 4,500 apprentices and programs. And so
Wow.
whether it was innovative earn and learn or registered apprentices, so it was, yeah, it was phenomenal. And a lot of those individuals were underrepresented in manufacturing, so they were very new in manufacturing. So we were able to provide them with that introduction into manufacturing, as well as engaging new employers in apprenticeship and earn and learn.
I'm sure that those who are watching today are thinking, oh my goodness, 4,500, that is a big number. Can you tell us a little bit about Ohio TechNet, just to give some perspectives to that? Because for those of you who may not know, Lorraine Community College is in the Cleveland, Ohio area, in that metro, close to that metro area. But this was Ohio TechNet. So can you tell those who are watching today what Ohio TechNet is?
Yeah, so Ohio TechNet is a collaborative or consortium of colleges throughout the state of Ohio. So this project specifically worked with higher ed, it worked with intermediaries and with industry sector partners throughout the state. So this was a statewide project. So those individuals were reached over the course of 5 years, working with employers. Like I said, in various organizations in order to reach and be able to support all of those individuals. So it definitely wasn't an LCC initiative or a regional initiative. It really expanded all over the state, which was pretty incredible.
That is incredible. Okay, we'll have another question for you. I'm going to move back to Cindy. I'm going to ask the question, what is the biggest challenge for recruiting apprentices? Since this was part of your talent system and what you were doing with that, what was the biggest challenge?
For us, we're in the financial, and insurance sector, and there's just not a lot of apprenticeships in that division. And so part of it was just the mere difficulty of being able to share that we had apprenticeship programs with the community colleges that we partnered with. Seems like when you think of apprenticeships, traditionally we think of the technical aspects. We think of the trades. We think of that for an apprentice. So when you start looking at a financial service sector that is interested in the program, I think people traditionally are always thinking, oh, shoot, that's just a 4-year degree or that's something. So it was nice. It's nice to be able to get into it, but really being able to get into the community colleges, get community college students to read their emails, because I think sometimes they're bombarded, with those emails in their school inbox. So that seemed like that was probably the biggest challenge. But once we would sneak into, the career development programs that are offered through the community colleges, then it really started to take foothold. And now when we do recruitment at our different community colleges, we do find that we have a large number of people that are interested in hearing about the program and attend our information sessions.
Yeah, that's really important, Cindy. That brings across the point of how important those relationships are. Sylvia talked a little bit about how that partnership with Ohio manufacturers and how this is across, higher education across the state of Ohio for what they're doing. And then you talking about the fact that you're working with, community colleges and colleges to be able to do your apprenticeship program. It really does speak to the importance of having those relationships to be able to be successful in your apprenticeship program. So thank you.
Sure.
Okay, Elisa, what's been the most rewarding about your apprenticeship program?
Honestly, being able, like, I would know, well, two things. Number one, just the relationship that I had with a lot of my other fellow apprentices. Like, I've just never had such a great relationship with these, like, my coworkers before. So I think having that one thing besides, oh, we're still working the same job, the fact they're all apprentices and we're slightly different from our fellow other coworkers, but yet different enough that we have that something in common was really awesome. Also, I had a customer facing job. So for me, I was talking with customers relating to their insurance claims, and when I was able to help specifically like older folks with helping understand their policy coverages and helping them give information or getting them to the right person and then being really grateful, it always felt really nice. And it was really rewarding to just be able to help someone who's appreciative. So.
Yes, that's great. Thank you. Sylvia, scaling apprenticeship began when industry recognized apprenticeships were introduced. And some of you may recall those were called IRAPs, but they were quickly eliminated. So how did that affect your project, and what were some of the other challenges? How did you handle those?
Yes, so we had launched the grant right before the pandemic. So we and then ended up encountering a lot of challenges at the very beginning, including having to remove IRAP language from the grant. And we realized that there was still a need for some of that innovative earn and learn. So we worked with OMA, the Ohio Manufacturer Association, as well as another organization to kind of coin that phrase, innovative earn and learn, and to think about, what does that mean? How can we develop programs that still align with the 5 hallmarks of program quality that the Department of Labor was, was ensuring that we stuck to, right? So developing high quality programs where people were still getting that mentorship experience. They were getting, it was a paid experience, right? Paid on the job experience. It was within a safe environment. It included classroom training. They're still getting all of these things, but there was still some flexibility to how the employers were developing and implementing these programs, whether it was in-house or out of house. How can we support the employers to really address their workforce and training needs? And so we had to be really, really flexible in the first 2 years of the grant, to be honest. Our partners, a lot of them were really new to grants as well. We worked with primarily industry sector partnerships. Some of them were new organizations, new to grants. And so there was a longer onboarding for that. And then we obviously had to change tactics, right? So we learned a lot about being flexible, about being adaptable to whatever the needs are of our employers and our workforce needs in the state. And honestly, that served us really well because we really developed programming that worked, that stuck, and that has continued past the life cycle of the grant, which really was that's the goal, right? Is to create sustainable projects and sustainable programming that's going to serve our people well.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things that Cindy had talked about, she had said a little bit about like talent and that kind of thing. And really that's the name of the game, right? Is that you want to be able to sustain those and you want to be able to show that there are pathways that people can see that they can advance and that kind of thing. So I'm going to come back to you with another question in a bit. I'm thinking of some questions I want to ask you all as we're moving along here. Okay, so Cindy, how would you describe your rap role insofar as working with an apprentice, and then what are the roles of maybe some others that are a part of the apprenticeship program when we talk about like supervision or mentoring?
Sure. So our wrap role is for a general insurance associate is one of the wrap roles that we have, but we also have something that's called a disability analyst associate. So we have two different type of apprenticeship programs. In the general insurance associate, we're typically, recruiting in the fall, and then, or excuse me, the spring, recruiting in the spring, and then we start the program in the summertime when you can get 4 to 6 weeks of kind of full time training under your belt to learn our systems, learn about the culture at the Hartford, and start getting some general insurance knowledge. So we're typically doing that through the summertime, and then as classes then start again in the fall, then the students, most of them continue to work full time and then take classes in the nights and evenings and online. So that's for our general insurance associate. For our disability analyst role, we really take a concentration on the health and medical programs. So when you see community colleges that have health information and management, that's kind of one of and allied health. Those are two types of programs that are offered at the community colleges. We're typically pulling in those sectors because we love people to have some general idea about coding, what health coding is. So they get a little bit of that. They also have the human physiology and anatomy background, so they know when we're talking with our clients that are somebody that's from a short-term or long-term disability claim, they're able to talk the talk with the bills and make sure that things are getting paid. And so we really like that specialty as well. That program, we still do the same recruiting in the spring, summer training, and then have them start. So that's typically what we do. As far as it goes with management, the things that I do, I manage the getting people hired, getting them brought on board, helping them, making sure that they're set up with the correct training, and then working with them from a mentoring standpoint, checking in with them to see how the program's going, where they're at, if they have any questions, how their school's going, following up with the school and partnering with the school, making sure that the students are still doing well in class, still getting good grades, and that they're still performing well at the Hartford as well.
Yeah, that's so important, that relationship between the related technical instruction, the provider, and the employer, because that gap is really important to fill, because you want to make sure that the apprentice is being successful and that they're not going to drop out, right? So it's really important for the employer and that related technical instruction provider to have a good relationship so that they can talk about challenges that the apprentice may be having, or if the apprentice is ready to move on and that kind of thing. So that's really important. It's good to hear. Thanks, Cindy.
Sure.
All right, Elisa, what's been the biggest challenge being an apprentice, and how are you overcoming those challenges?
Honestly, for me, I didn't have that many challenges. This is I would say a very superficial one, I think. So I came from a background of retail and customer service. So it goes hand in hand with the role I was in, because you're customer facing, but with insurance knowledge. So for me, it was honestly getting used to the 9 to 5 routine. Like, I've worked like in retail, they're called clopens, like you close one night and then open the next. So that was a lot different. And for me, it was just like, oh my gosh, 5 days in a row where I was used to working like 2 or 3. So it was hard to get used to that scheduling. I'm like, wow, this seems so repetitive. But now I really like it. I like how my schedule is the same, and I get to have my weekends off all the time, holidays off all the time. So I really like that. But at the time, for me, just taking it day by day, I just like, okay, I just have to get through this day. We'll be okay. And then rinse and repeat until I finally got used to it.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's good to hear. Well, I'm going to ask Cindy another question. I'm going to ask Elisa a couple more questions. I'm going to ask you to think about what your final word would be about registered apprenticeship programs. I have a few questions, and then I want to also encourage those who are watching to put any questions they have in the chat so that we can make sure that those get answered. So I'm going to ask you, Cindy, what is a consideration an employer should make when they're considering whether to start a registered apprenticeship program? You've given us a lot of good information about what it is that the Hartford has done And it really sounds like a lot of work. And that's one of the things we hear from employers. Oh, it's a lot of work. So what are some considerations that an employer needs to make when they're considering a registered apprenticeship program?
Sure. Kind of, there is some work involved. There's no question around it. But when you're trying to look at, 21st century, finding and engaging in a diverse candidate pool, it's a great option to choose because you can go into different colleges in different areas that you just would not have normally ventured in. So you really open up your opportunities to be able to attract talent in a different pool that you normally always go to. When I was listening to Sylvia, she was talking a little bit about having grant writers and trying to get things set up. And I know she was going through the IRAP and then having to switch it to the RAP program. There is definitely a little bit of paperwork that becomes involved. But the nice thing about it is we found when we were going through it that the Department of Labor was really helpful in being able to provide us with other insurance resources to be able to get us set up. They're like, oh, hey, let's help you. Let's help you with the writing portion. There's so many options that are available now. I know there's been some financial institutions that have reached out to the Hartford, and I share all of our documents so that they can simply use that as a template to get them started. So I feel like yes, there's some upfront paperwork, but once you have that upfront paperwork, everything else that you kind of work with, you always want to make sure it doesn't matter if it's an apprentice or an employee. You need to make sure that they're taken care of, that they're getting their needs met with mentoring, their just on the job learning experience, and learning about the program. So that apprentice or non-apprentice, you still have to do that. Again, additional steps, additional conferences or calls with the Department of Labor, but it's all meant to support the apprentice. So it's, once you get it started, I think it goes pretty easy.
Yeah, there are a couple of things I want to break down there because they're really important, what you mentioned. One is the fact that even though employers will say, this is a lot of work, this seems like a lot to do, to your point, most employers already have some type of training program that they're already doing, right? So they have it there. There are a few more steps they need to put into it because typically an employer will have some type of training that they do internally that shows people more skill and gets them more advanced. And so now it's just a matter of helping them get it on paper. And to your second point, whether you're in a state that runs the apprenticeship program or in a state that uses the Department of Labor, either way, you have a lot of support there and a lot of help. I mean, the idea is to be able to increase the number of apprenticeship programs. And so they're going to do everything they can to help you to be able to establish an apprenticeship program. So I'm glad that you mentioned that because that would be a big failure on our part if we didn't mention that you do have help that can get that assistance for you to be able to make sure that you can establish a successful registered apprenticeship program. Okay, Elise, I have a couple questions for you. So as an apprenticeship trailblazer, how have you been able to share your registered apprenticeship story with other youth?
Specifically this webinar, unfortunately, my schedule did not align for the in-person meeting back in May. And then I was on vacation, so I wasn't able to participate in this one. That's this week, but doing this webinar allows me to share my story and hopefully make people want to be an apprentice because it's literally the best thing that's happened to me. So I'm able to have a career, like start a career. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And now I have that here. I have my start. And I think I have a pretty good foundation here. So
Yeah, that's great. And you did talk a little bit about how, talking with your other co-workers and those who have been in the program, be able to support one another. So, I mean, just keeping that word out there that, the successes that you've had and that kind of thing. And we're so happy that you could join us today to be able to share the story. What advice would you give to an individual considering participation in a registered apprenticeship program?
if they're considering it, regardless if you don't think that you're a good fit, I definitely say would apply. There's no regret and like applying for something, and if you don't get it, you don't get it, but if you do get it, it's a great opportunity, right? I think when you're in apprenticeship, the networking and the network that you build is literally unmatchable because you have a little bit of everyone everywhere. So you have, for example, like I have Cindy, she like does a lot of the leading stuff with apprenticeships. She knows a lot. She knows also the organization really well. So having someone like that in my network is really awesome, because I can ask her like, hey, so what do you think I should do, like building my career, you know? So it's stuff like that, that it's like really awesome. And I get to have you as a mentor as well. So like, these are like really, y'all are very important to my network. So it's really nice to be able to have access to that, because I know if I wasn't an apprentice, I wouldn't have access to any of this. So I definitely think go for it, even if you're unsure, because I thought I was unsure, then here I am now. So yeah.
Thanks, Elisa. That's great. So what I'd like to do is provide each of you an opportunity to give your final word on registered apprenticeship programs, and then we will open it up for questions. I see at least 2 in the chat. And then I can go ahead and ask my questions as well. So Sylvia, we're going to start with you. So what's your final word on registered apprenticeship programs?
Yeah, I'd say, especially for employers, if it's the work that scares you, right, and you're not sure what those steps are. Somebody actually put this in the chat, like, do you work with your workforce boards? There are folks nearby that you can reach out to, without having to go as far up as, DOL or even to the state. But there are either it's an industry sector partnership or workforce board that can help outline what those steps look like, and usually help to support you to making those first steps. Also, community colleges are fantastic in helping you figure out what those steps look like. Oftentimes we're sponsors, registered apprenticeship sponsors, so you can also choose to not be a sponsor, right, and to just have a registered apprenticeship program and utilize a community college as the sponsor for your training as well. So there are a lot of options if you don't want to be the sponsor. You can work with various different, tech centers or community colleges as your training providers. So there are a lot of options if you want to take on a certain level of responsibility, but maybe not the entire responsibility of the apprenticeship.
Yep,
So
that's
there are
true.
options too.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, I'm going to save my question for you because I have a question. All right, Cindy, what's your final word?
For me, I'm just going to start first with anybody who is interested in becoming an apprentice. I shout it almost just whenever I can. Four-year colleges are great for people who want to go to a four-year college. They're wonderful opportunities, but they are not the only opportunities you have after high school. You can go into an apprenticeship program. You can go into a trade. You can go into a manufacturing program. You can do different things. You can go into the financial service industry and still make a great income. So there are options out there. You do not have one way to go. So I just want to say that for future apprentices, and certainly for the businesses, be able to attract talent, to be able to attract talent that's outside your normal pipeline. Apprenticeship program is a super way to be able to attract the talent. And I also noticed when Sylvia had mentioned, do we work with local workforce development areas? Absolutely. It's another great way to identify talent that you normally wouldn't go to. So, and what I love about working with the local workforce boards is that talent sticks. They are looking, the talent, the individuals are looking for a job. They want to be able to make a next step. Maybe they were laid off, whatever circumstance took place. They're anxious and ready to start a new career. So we love partnering with the workforce boards.
Thanks, Cindy.
Uh-huh.
Okay, Lisa, you're up.
I definitely agree with what Cindy said. I was like really at the point in my life where I'm like, I just need something, like I just need like a career start, and like that was that opportunity, or this apprenticeship was that opportunity. I would say always go for it. And if you're having not issues, but like if you're having any obstacles trying to find more about apprenticeships, I would definitely just do your research and see if like there's one available to you, if there's any openings for like literally anything, because I don't know. I just personally think that the resources and the skills and the knowledge that I got are irreplaceable to just like me getting a normal job. And I'm so grateful for the network and then literally everything. So I think the apprenticeship will give back, like, I think it will give back tenfold of like what you came in. You come in, you work hard, you do your job well, and I think you'll end up with a really rewarding result, I think. So definitely go for an apprenticeship if you're um, thinking about it.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and go into the chat, and then I'll ask my question since some of you have alluded to this one in the chat. So somebody said, do any of you work with your local workforce development areas and WIOA to help fund or support your participants? And I want to say this, because I think this is really important. I always try to remind employers, no matter what project I'm working on, you're already paying into it. You need to think about your workforce development and your WIOs as an extension of your HR departments, right? So, utilize them. That's why they're there. They're a wonderful partner. And so that's really important. And sometimes there are, depending on that workforce board, because remember, they can decide how they want to spend their monies. Some of them have additional grant money specifically for apprenticeship programs. And so it does not ever hurt to ask, right? To find out if your workforce board, if your WIOA has dollars for registered apprenticeship programs and paying for related technical instruction and such. So it never hurts to ask. They're great partners, and you do yourself a disservice if you don't reach out to find out those kind of things. Now, Lori, who is with Spirit Aero Systems, she was having audio problems, but she did answer the question, and she said, I actually am working with my local workforce center for grant dollars to support our programs, and we currently receive $6,000 per apprentice from them in grant dollars. That is huge, right? That could potentially pay for all the related technical instruction. So, thinking about who your partners are, finding out if there are grant dollars available, that's actually how TPMA got involved with registered apprenticeship programs. We were helping an industry sector partnership and a WIOA partner. We were actually helping them to implement their American Apprenticeship Initiative grant. And that's where they started, just as an incentive to get more people started early. You got like $6,000 per apprentice to start. And then as the grant went down, it became lower and lower until it was like $2,000 per. But that goes a long way in being able to build up those numbers of apprenticeship programs. And so if there are dollars available, you definitely want to find that out and be able to hop on that bandwagon if possible. What are the steps to start a registered apprenticeship program, and is it feasible for a small business, say, of less than 10 employees to attempt? This is where what Sylvia was saying is perfect, right? I always tell people, remember that there are five pieces to an apprenticeship program. You need to have that sponsor. So whether it's the employer themselves or another entity, such as a community college, like Sylvia was saying. You may also have maybe some nonprofits in your organization, in your area, that are sponsors, but you don't have to be the sponsor. But the first thing is you must have a sponsor, whether it's the employee or it's another entity. Then you have to make sure that you have related technical instruction. And then you have to make sure that you have a mentor, somebody who is actually going to walk that apprentice along to make sure that they're going to be successful. You have to be able to show that there's a progression in their wages, right? It's the ultimate earn and learn. And then lastly, for a registered apprenticeship program, they have to receive a certificate of completion. Used to be known as a journeyman's card, right? And so those are the 5 elements I always like to tell everybody about. Of course, there's more in depth in each one of those, but you don't have to go it alone. If you are a small employer, I would say get in touch find out if you have an industry sector partnership. That's another way to get involved. But you don't have to go it alone. Reach out to your community college. I'm not sure where this person is from, but if you want to put your locale, we can help you get in touch with who could help. And so another question was then, how did Elisa find out about the apprenticeship?
Actually, I was just checking my school email one day. So how Cindy mentioned, like the school emails, and they do another, I think it's some kind of job fair kind of thing. I'm not too familiar, but I just checked my email. I'm like, oh, the Hartford's hiring this apprentice, and then the details, and I'm like, say less. I am going to apply for that.
Well, there you go. That's wonderful. So, okay, if you're Marietta, Ohio, then I highly recommend getting in touch with Ohio TechNet or with Sylvia, we can make sure that that everybody has access to email addresses and that kind of thing. But that's what I would recommend. If you're in Ohio, you want to get in touch with Ohio TechNet because they're doing these types of things. And I can almost guarantee that there is somebody that's going to be able to help you out with that. And then there's somebody who said they would be interested. And so just make sure that you're looking at, where it is that you're located. You can reach out to TPMA. I will always get you in touch with, I love being part of like ecosystems and getting people involved and letting them know what's available. Assuming that you have a weak workforce development board, what role do you see for local government in creation of registered apprenticeship programs? Does anybody want to take that on?
Yeah, I was looking at that one, Vicki, and all of the workforce boards that I've worked with have been very strong partners. And when I think of, we have some workforce boards in Florida, for instance, that we take care of the tuition, they take care of the books. So we really do try to think outside of the box with every state that we partner with. So I've never gone outside with local department. I suppose I would think of every state has has apprenticeship leaders. So, if it's a state-run agency or a federal agency, they all have that. And you can look that up and perhaps get in contact with them, and they would be able to provide you with other resources. That's kind of where I'm thinking, at the very least, reach out to them.
Absolutely. It's all about partnerships. And so many of those state workforce boards already have those relationships established, right? And so, yeah, take advantage of those. Get in touch with with whoever it is that's handling your apprenticeships in your state, and they can help you out with who it is you can contact. And thank you, Sylvia. Sylvia said that, if you want to contact her, she can help connect people as well. All right, so here are my questions. So Sylvia, you had mentioned industry sector partnership. And I too, I'm in Northeast Ohio. I'm sitting here in Northeast Ohio, and I know about the industry sector partnerships and how strong they are and what advocates they can be. Can you talk a little bit about industry sector partnerships and which industries that you've been involved with as far as registered apprenticeship programs?
We primarily work in manufacturing. So in terms of industries for registered apprenticeship, I'm really interested in learning more about, Cindy, what you guys are doing right now with insurance, because we have an insurance program that's partnering really closely with employers to help facilitate, training that's actually employer specific, what our local employers are actually looking for with insurance. So it'd be really cool to see how apprenticeship can be integrated in there. We do a lot around work-based learning as well, and our work-based learning at LCC specifically. So putting on my LCC hat, we do a lot of more of that innovative earn and learn work-based learning across all industries at the college. Including the arts and humanities. So finding opportunities for students to get those hands-on experiences and build those transferable skills before they leave the college is really, really important to us at LCCC, but it's also important at a lot of our community colleges throughout the state. So work-based learning is a huge part of how we do business in Ohio, to make sure that we are preparing our students before they enter the workforce. And so working with employers and having them support us at the front end, not just coming in at the back end, right? Oh, here we have these people that we've trained, but really helping us to develop the trainings, develop our curriculum is really important, and it's essential that employers come in at the front end so that we're helping to prepare them for the actual workforce.
Yeah, that really speaks volumes, right? I mean, the employer really needs to be heavily involved so that they can be sure that they're getting what it is that they really need. And the flexibility of the community college allows for that to happen, right? Having those relationships, being able to talk through what that related technical instruction can look like and that kind of thing. And then the added benefit that if your community college can also be a group sponsor, then really working through that whole mentoring piece of it and helping an employer understand what their role is. So thank you. That's really good information. Lori is also telling us here in the chat that at Spirit, they have 4 programs. So it's interesting. She says some have as many as 20 apprentices. There's one that only has one. They think they're all worth it, right? So this really goes to what it is that Cindy was saying about how it's worth it, the investment and the paperwork that has to be done and that kind of thing, that it really does help with that talent attraction or retention. And we know that those who participate in registered apprenticeship program, those employees are over 90% likely to stay with that employer, right? And so it is a good retention tool that employers could take advantage of, and they should do that. I can say that the other person that I'm mentoring, that she is with Spirit Aero Systems, and her apprenticeship has to do with machining, but it's really interested in talking to her and learning about what she's doing. A lot of it has to do with design. So, even when we talk about what are some of these apprenticeship programs, and this is why I really was interested in having the Hartford and Spirit Aero Systems, because these are apprenticeships that are not necessarily the traditional ones. I mean, the other mentor is doing, like I'm saying, is doing a lot of design type kind of things, and that's what her apprenticeship is about. So it's really interesting to see how apprenticeships have grown from this traditional things like construction and building trades and your manufacturing, to a lot of other things that what would be considered not as much as hands-on as we traditionally think. And so it's interesting to hear about what's happening with that and how apprenticeship programs are really growing. Okay, Elisa, I have a question for you. I would like to know if you can talk to us a little bit about how your mentor helped you and some of the things they did, so that then those who might be interested in an apprenticeship program would understand what that relationship is between your apprenticeship, a mentor, not me,
Okay.
not a trailblazer mentor, but your apprenticeship in-house mentor, what it was that they were able to do to keep you going and to make sure that you were successful.
Yeah, so I was assigned a mentor. I believe I think it's Isabel or Isabella, but what happens was we would have monthly meetings, and if I ever came across like a question or like, hey, I handled this certain, like, it was in a call center, so it was like, hey, I don't know how I handled this call, like what would you do? So she was a more tenured rep, so she had experience, she had de-escalation skills, all sort of like all like really helpful skills a new person could learn from. So I would have monthly meetings for the first 6 months, and then I would write down any questions or like calls where I'm like, I don't know if I handled this right, like what would you do? Or if I had any issues, she'd be like, yeah, so this is what I do to help de-escalate the situation, or whatever she would help me with. Or I'm like, I had a really interesting um claim, I don't know how I would code this in the system. And she's like, oh, this is what I would code it for. I would just put that in your notes. So it was just like stuff like that that helped, that additional support. Of course my supervisor was also there to answer any questions, but having that additional support definitely made it, I don't know, way more helpful. And I don't know, like having a mentor and hearing you guys talk about the apprenticeship, it makes me feel so special. Like, all this work, time, and effort, all these additional people to help me, like it really like motivates me to be, or motivated me to be successful when I was in there.
Yeah,
The
it is
apprenticeship, I mean.
important. Yeah, I think it's important too for our viewers to realize that Elisa has actually completed her apprenticeship program. And so she's waiting to get her certificate, which I think will be given to her this coming up month in December. So, so congrats to her. She actually finished her apprenticeship program, and so you can hear it and see it that she's still enthusiastic about it and believes heavily in the process and what it is that she was able to do with it. Okay, so we have another question here. The question is, who defines the curriculum for the DOL registered apprenticeship? Is that Ohio TechNet? I'm specifically interested in CNC machining. Oh, Sylvia, this is easy for you. Can you answer that question for them?
Yeah, well, I hope it's easy, right? Well, the DOL is the one that comes up with the standards. So you actually need, as Vicky was explaining, those 5 components. So Department of Labor comes up with the standards. There are different components. So the related technical training or the related technical instruction often has to be tied in with actually, you could partner with a community college for that to help you develop what that would look like. And they can help. Usually, I mean, I'm assuming, I think it's Washington State that's near you, Washington State College. They could probably help walk you through, if they're a sponsor, walk you through what that related technical instruction would look like. And they'll be probably more well versed in that than I would be, in providing you with that advice. But standards, Department of Labor, the related technical instruction you could work through with a local community college if that was what you wanted, if you wanted to get that support there.
Yeah, the other thing that I would say is that I can recall when I was with a post-secondary institution that really the employers were really guiding this. And that's what this gets back to what Sylvia was saying. Your employers are really guiding it. And so sometimes what we would have is we would have the employers come to us and say, here are the things we know that our apprentices have to have, right? This is what it needs to look like. Help us, where do we go from here? And this is when we would then bring in our apprenticeship person at the state level. And I would highly recommend that. The state of Ohio, like many states, has quadrants or different regions for those representatives. So you need to find out who that is, and they could get you involved. They can also help you find out who might have something similar to what it is that you're trying to find. And so those relationships are really important to start building, right? Like, who can I talk to? Getting in touch with them, having them getting in touch with other people. The other thing is that if you are in an area where your community college hasn't done a lot with apprenticeship programs, typically there are networks, and like in Ohio, when they have Ohio Tech Net, that they have those relationships and they can share curriculum and that kind of thing. And so you're never going it alone. There are always people, even as Cindy is saying, like she's even sharing information with others. And so you'll find that there's a big network of people who like to share information and really help out on these type of things. And so even if your community college doesn't have something currently, chances are they have a relationship with somebody who can help with that. And so it's all about communicating and people sitting down together and being able to, get things accomplished. I don't see any other questions. Does anybody else have anything that they want to ask or say? And we're ready to close up. Well, thank you all for joining. I really appreciate your time today. It makes a difference when the audience gets to hear from people who are actually experience apprenticeship, whether it's from the apprenticeship end of it and the apprenticeship themselves, from those that are guiding the process, or from those who are intermediaries and advocating and acting as related technical instruction or as the sponsors themselves. So I'd like to thank our speakers today. I really appreciate what you've been able to share with everyone in helping us celebrate National Apprenticeship Week. To those in our listening audience and who have been watching, if you have additional questions, please reach out. We'd be more than happy to put you in touch with our panelists today. We ourselves, as ambassadors, are willing to help out as well. And we hope that you have a good week. Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thanks.